Hello everyone, Fab has been released and we are ready to launch our 1.3 update for the dynamic road system. This is the first and probably the smallest of the next 3 updates, which I detailed in my previous channel update video. For this update, I have a quick reminder: if you are updating a project from the previous version, please back up your project before updating the road system, just in case something doesn't translate well from the last update to this one. So, big warning there. The thing that's most likely to be mistranslated from the last update are road lines, since some of those variables have been changed or replaced, which I will talk about closer to the end of this video. But let's start by going over some options that have been added for quality of life improvements. The first option added is the ability to have UV scaling enabled for meshes. If you tried placing a regular material on the roads before, you would see stretching in weird places and it would be very inconsistent. To avoid this, we had to use a material that used world-aligned textures. World-aligned textures can be thought of as a projector that is projecting an image onto the mesh. So no matter how you move the mesh, it will still be projecting the material on it, and it will seem like the material is shifting as the mesh moves. This planar projection method is now also used in the UV generation process, so it can scale like a world-aligned material. I still recommend world-aligned materials because they'll match up two completely separate pieces of geometry and display the material as if the two objects are seamless. With the new UV method, roads will be matched up if rendered together, but if rendered at two different times or locations, the projection may not line up. But this is still useful for some people that just don't want to use world-aligned materials, or for people that will have their roads be movable, because world-aligned materials would look weird to users on an object that moves. The next option is the ability to remove triangles that appear under the mesh. This change affects all 3 blueprints, and in some of them erases geometry that was necessary for construction, but not the final mesh. While this doesn't necessarily speed up the performance of the road creation, it does save on memory and rendering when using the mesh in your level. There are performance improvements in this update, but the most notable one is for road lines when using the quality version of a road. We fixed some of the math that generates road lines, which allows us to use cheaper functions that save on computation time. This should also greatly improve the speed of baking roads that have road lines. There are also some variables being added and removed for the next update, which is the OSM update. While the variables are a change at this update, they won't be significant until the next update. I say update, but there's a possibility that since the OSM functionality is primarily C++ and not blueprints, it may have to be a separate product like an add-on. I will guarantee that the OSM update will remain free under the normal license tier, but it may need to be distributed as an add-on instead, since it's my current understanding that you can't add C++ files to projects that are initially sold as blueprint only. But I'll look into it more as it's closer to coming out. In regards to the OSM, we used to have a bot on our Discord server that generated the maps for users and then returned it back as a TXT file that UE5 could read. The OSM update will replace that functionality, and as of the previous video, the bot was taken offline, but the replacement, which is coming hopefully soon, will be a lot better, have a lot more features, and allow much larger map sizes than the previous 1 square kilometer limit. The last change in this update about OSM is that if you previously made a map with the OSM bot, it should continue to work, but we fixed the bug where all the road splines were showing all the time. This is a huge drain on resources and rendering, so now it will only show the spline when the road is selected, like how it normally works. Now, to cover another bug, it seems like the code for the geometry script plugin slightly changed on Unreal Engine 5.4, causing a bug when it came time for baking roads. It would sometimes make the road all yellow. You can sometimes replicate this issue by enabling road lines and having a road connection blueprint attached to them in UE 5.4, and then when the roads get baked to stack meshes, they become yellow for whatever reason. I traced the issue back to a C++ function from the geometry script plugin and now use an alternative function that works across all versions of Unreal Engine. So now that's fixed. The last bug that got fixed was an issue where road lines depicting lanes weren't being rotated with the road if the user rotated the blueprint route. Typically, I recommend just moving the spline points instead of rotating the entire blueprint, but I know there are some circumstances when rotating the entire road would just be the easiest way, and now with this update, it should rotate correctly. We also made a change to have road lines come in presets. This will be expanded upon in the update after the OSM update, where we will include more line presets like full lanes to be used for bikes and other vehicles. And it will allow you to make your own custom presets. but presets are now a collapsible option, which hopefully declutters some of the space the other Boolean variables took. The options to create lines that are not in a preset can also be achieved easier now, and there's a new way to specify how you want lines to be centered on your road. You can center the lines by edge, center, or lane. Edge centering will place your lines at the edge of the road, and center will place your lines at the center of the road. Center lines can also be shifted if the lanes divide traffic unevenly. For example, 2 lanes on one side and 3 lanes on the other will cause these yellow centered lines to shift, giving 3 lanes a proportional amount of space. You also have lane centering, which will center your lines differently depending on which lane it's assigned to. So if you have 2 left lanes and 3 right lanes, there would be 3 lane lines made, 1 splitting the 2 left lanes and 2 splitting the 3 right lanes. A quick note, left and right lane directions are always determined by looking at the starting point of the road, also known as the route. Presets were utilizing these centering options before, but now the options are exposed so you can use it on custom road lines. A new addition is that if the center line preset is off, a lane line will appear in the middle of the road like a centered line. Beforehand, mainly for the OSM maps, I got around this by making a center line match the appearance of a lane line, and that's no longer necessary with this addition. If you are using lane lines and no center lines, then you most likely have a one-way road. The better way to make one-way roads now is to set the unused road direction to 0 lanes. Previously, the minimum number of lanes was 1 on each side, but now the minimum is 0. I recommend as a standard that if you only have right lanes, then cars should be expected to enter from the start of the road. And if it's only left lanes, then cars should enter from the end of the road. Of course, I'm American, so we drive on the right side, so you can interpret the traffic directions differently if your culture drives on the other side. I'm hoping that with the addition of these changes and the OSM update, there could be a traffic manager built that could automate traffic. I have no immediate plans to make that system, but maybe in the future. But the hope is that cars could trace the blueprint below it, and then get all important information such as the traffic direction from the number of lanes, speed limits and road names from OSM tags, and of course the road path from the spline. So even if I don't make a traffic manager blueprint myself, it would be a lot easier for you to make your own now, if needed. Another change is that road lines can now be specified to be on the left side or right side. All right lane lines are of course placed on the right side, and all left lane lines are placed on the left. So if I disable left lane lines really quick and go back to the right lane lines and enable place on left side, it now switches sides. This has a similar effect on edge lines, but it has no effect on center lines because it's in the center, and something that's in the center can neither be on the left or right side, so it does nothing. You can now also specify the lane number to center onto if you are using lane centering. Alright, that's everything for road lines. Just one more change to go for this update, and it has to do with materials. Materials can now be dynamically added or taken away from the blueprint using this material array. You may be thinking, I already have this panel up here with all the materials, why do I need a new array of default materials? And that is a great question. The most important reason is that the variable array will allow you to add materials and take them away, and the panel above won't. It also is primarily there so that when the blueprint is spawned in, it knows what materials should be applied by default. Otherwise, it would only allow the main road material, and you would have to manually assign all the rest for each road. For the default material array, you can add a material to it, like this red paint, and assign it to a line and set its size to be quite a bit bigger, so that it acts like a bike lane. This is one of the presets that will come to the dynamic road system in the update after the OSM update. This is a feature I've wanted to add for a while, but it affects a lot of other things in the scene, like edge lines being pushed all the way back, and how that connects to other roads. All things that are handled better when this utilizes C++ in the future update. Well, this has been a fairly decent sized update. Remember to create a backup of your project if you are upgrading from the previous version of this road system, because there may be some things wrongly interpreted from the update process. For this update, I'm mostly worried about road lines. The previous 3 Boolean variables that acted as the old presets got removed and replaced with this new array version, which means I'm using some functions that fairly reliably guess what preset you have based on other information. This new deprecation function runs the first time your level is opened after updating, and it translates previous data to new data in the hope that it looks the same despite the variables being different. Alright, that's it for this update. I'm really looking forward to sharing the next 2 big updates when they're ready. If you want to be notified of those next videos, you can join our Discord server or follow us here on YouTube. Thanks for watching, until next time.